This is Ottawa's home for breaking news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. News Talk 580 CFRA. Here is Nick Vandergragt.
All right, let's go and talk to Kevin out there in North Gore. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Nick, how's it going this evening?
If I was any better, buddy, I'd be out under the apple tree looking for the bent penny.
Okay, that's I haven't heard that one before. I kind of like that one.
Someday I'll figure out if that's good or bad.
All right, guys, jury's out on that one. We'll let time tell.
That's right.
Yeah, I was very glad to hear a couple. I think I counted at least 3 there callers that phoned in direct support. Wanted to discuss your 5 pillars of conservatism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it was the first caller of that of your show there that referenced the 5 C's.
Yeah.
And I'm quoting slightly less than verbatim, so pardon me. But I think she said something along the lines of, you've got to learn to fail before you can understand and appreciate success.
Yes.
And I would add to that, well, that's life. And in my humble opinion, that is the epitome of a conservative ideology.
Yes, it is. And the reason why I obviously I wrote it, so of course I agree with it, but it's, look, if you're going to succeed, the thing about life is there are no guarantees. No matter what the socialists will tell you, no matter what, the progressives will say, if they don't admit that if you try to protect somebody from every possible opportunity for pain in their lives, you're doing them a huge disservice.
It's like helping the butterfly out of the cocoon.
Yeah, all you do is kill it.
Exactly. I understand that, and I find myself in complete and total 100% agreement with you. And I would like to add that, I truly believe that I think that the message that lies in all of this and what I'm trying to do, and for your listeners, I was the Kevin Harris you referenced earlier there for the blog. But conservative ideology and mainstream Canadian values are not mutually exclusive concepts. And I think that needs to, that line of thinking needs to work its way back into, as I think you said, social conscience.
It does, because let's face it, I think that when you look at, never mind, and I want to make this clear, I'm not talking about the political conservative movement. And I
agree.
I think Sean from Beacon Hill was onto something, that is in trouble, the political conservative movement. But the reason it's in trouble, and I didn't get a chance to get into this with him, but I think the reason is because it's abandoned its philosophically conservative roots. And as James pointed out, that, we've been pushed so far to the left that anybody who makes any move back towards the right looks like, is all of a sudden some kind of fringe character. And that, I think, is by design. So in order to get back to an ability to think and function on your own with some kind of sanity, you have to go through a couple of things. One is struggle, and the other one is to admit that you're responsible for your own actions and the consequences that flow from them.
And I fundamentally find myself in agreement with you, and I would like to further add that I think part of the problem has been in the last decade that I'm not talking the conservatives were in power for the last decade in this country, and I think many grassroots elements took that notion for granted. And one of the reasons why our society tends to be driven toward a more left-of-center approach in the day-to-day, the bigger government, the more yada, yada, yada. But I think one of the reasons that we're being driven toward that is when the conservatives politically were in power, the grassroots element of the whole notion took that for granted, and we have done nothing to further grassroots organizations, NGOs, think tanks, elements of our society that do have public influence and public opinion. You look at the majority of them, and they're all left of center. And I think maybe we need to anybody with anybody who agrees with the 5 pillars of conservatism, quite frankly, just to simplify, needs to realize that, okay, well, we've got to do a little bit more than, we've got to infiltrate the grassroots.
Well, to cut to the chase here, the 5 pillars, they are pillars, but they're not the whole building. It's upon that the building rests, and you have to continue to build on that. So when you look at this, I think there's another reason why people are drifting to the left. And in our day and age, and I say this in a very general sense with no one particular in mind, but socialism and progressivism are intellectual laziness because everybody does everything for you. You never have to be accountable for the things you do. Look at our prime minister, okay? Has he ever done a lick of work in any form in his entire life? Has he ever done manual labor? Has he ever run a chainsaw? Has he ever run a backhoe? Has he ever sweated over a calculator? Has he ever tried to meet a budget to run a business? Has he ever had to meet a deadline in an office somewhere? He's never done any of that. And yet he's supposed to know what it takes to be a Canadian. He doesn't even know what it takes to be a man.
And I agree with you. And this is what I see so evident in the masses is that kind of somebody else will take care of my problems. That way of thinking has become so predominant in our society, and there's something wrong with that. And you know as well as anybody that knows the aim of my blog, for example. It's to bring that personal accountability, that sense that conservative ideology and mainstream Canadian values are not mutually exclusive concepts back into the social conscience. And that's what we as a society must recognize, or quite frankly, we're going to continue on this path that we're on where, as you said, our own prime minister has never even heard of what a chainsaw is, let alone how to use one.
Fair enough. Got to stop you there, Kevin.
Hey, fair enough, man. Thank you very much, Nick. Have yourself a good night.
You too.